Namaste, yogis. It's Adrienne.
And Mia.
Welcome back to How Yoga Changed My Life, a podcast. So Mia had a hot date with Jair and left me and Drea to interview Magenta, which was super fun. And we'll get into her episode here in a second. But I wanted to just check in and see how everything's going. Mia, how's your week?
Good. I made the decision to go back to the classroom on a Thursday, accepted a position on a Monday.
Dang.
And now we are on Friday of that same week, a time frame. And so I saw my classroom for the first time today. I made a bunch of purchases. I have an Amazon wish list up. Like, I'm just getting it all together because when I left the classroom a little over a year ago, I gave everything away.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm starting from scratch, which is super exciting. It's nice to just have like a clean slate. And yeah.
That's crazy. You got like 4 offer letters in like less than 24 hours.
Yeah, so I got a couple of different offers pretty quickly. Had a lot of even requests for interviews after I accepted my position, just because there's a super high need for teachers right now.
It's so crazy. It's so cool too that you just said, "Hey, I'm making a change in my life." You did, and it happened the week of the full moon.
Yeah,
you know, and I really feel like you had a big change this week. I had a big change this week too. I left a studio that I've been with for over 6 years, and as a yoga teacher, it's super hard to get out of this mindset of like taking care of yourself and also, being there for students and honoring your needs and their needs. And I felt like it was time for a change. Mm-hmm. It was time for me to, and it took me a long time to kind of find that voice inside that's like, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good on your own. You're good moving through the community. This podcast has really opened up my eyes to how we can get yoga out into the communities that we live in, as well as reach, listeners all over the world, and just teaching about yoga and how it's a lifestyle and it's how we should be showing up for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So big week for both of us.
Definitely.
Very, very scary, very, exciting all at the same time.
It's
Totally worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Totally worth it. And it sucks because I'm going to miss so many of my students and my friends. Had a good cry with them this morning when I said goodbye.
Yeah.
But it was the right thing to do. And I'm looking to really forward to see what's going to happen next in life.
Yeah. And I'm glad you were able to say goodbye too. Like that you had that opportunity.
I know. That's the one thing that makes me so sad for you, is that your release from there, your firing from there was done in such a way that wasn't necessary and really took away from your ability to say goodbye.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But you've had to move past that. And that's kind of the whole point of life, right? Is like, even though we're walking into a yoga studio, there's still going to be life bullshit to deal with, right? There's still different attitudes. There's still different people. There's still different things that are going to affect us in different ways. And I can't believe your cat is coming up to me now.
I know.
Because so Mia's got 4 cats. We're recording down at Mia's house today. And she's got this one cat named Clyde. No,
this one's Cora.
Cora. And she's this beautiful little black kitty.
She's teeny tiny.
Tiny little thing. And she came up to me and like, let me pet her earlier. And I was like, holy shit, you probably smell all 3 dogs on me. I was like, get the fuck away from me, lady.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even be worried. She's so delicate that she can like get around everything and not touch anything we're doing. And she just likes to sit and watch. It's so funny.
It's so cute. I love it. Yeah, so let's get into Magenta's episode.
Absolutely. I got a chance to listen to it because obviously I was not there. You're going to hear that pretty soon here, and we'll come back together at the end of this episode.
Namaste, yogis. This is Adrienne, and I have 2 special guests with me today, Drea and Magenta.
Hello.
Hello.
So Mia had to leave because she had a hot date with Jair. So
Very hot date.
we decided that we're going to take over.
Mm-hmm.
And
you look so good.
I know,
right
I'm
now.
so excited because
It was the best idea I've had all day.
It was the best idea you've had. Totally. Love you, Mia. We're just going to run with Drea as your stand-in podcast host.
Yeah.
My co-host is Drea.
I love it.
So we already met Drea in the previous episodes. Mm-hmm. So you already know Drea, but just give everyone who hasn't listened to your episode yet a little bit about yourself.
I mean, first they should stop this episode and go listen to that. I'm trying.
Yes.
What the fuck are you doing not listening to my goddamn episode?
Exactly.
Well, my name is Andrea. I'm born and raised in San Antonio. Among being a yoga teacher, I'm also a jewelry artist, a silversmith. I guess market organizer. I forgot to say that last time.
Yeah.
And a creative workshop facilitator.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. So our guest today is Magenta. Hello, love.
Hello.
Tell me a little bit. Introduce yourself to the listeners out there.
My name is Magenta. I am also a San Antonio native, born and raised, been here all my life. I am a yoga teacher of many skills.
There you go.
And that's about it. That's all I do because that's my passion and that's my life. I also teach. I work at my stepdad's guitar shop, so that's my 9 to 5 that I only work 6 hours in.
I love it.
9 to 5 once a week.
Yeah, my 9 to 5 once a week
For 6
It's
hours.
So much fun. Yeah, I take a really long lunch, y'all. No. That's my dualistic side to the yoga, but primarily just a yoga teacher. I hold workshops, and yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're going to get into Magenta's story today. Magenta, tell us your yoga origin story. So like, when did you first encounter yoga in your life?
So when I was very young, probably, I reckon about like 10 to 12. Yeah. Little baby.
Little tiny Magenta baby.
I found and was gifted DVDs and VHSs of yoga, and we had that, and I would do that on my TV at home, and that was fun and good and great. And then along the line, somewhere around there, my dad had a girlfriend, Sarah, love Sarah, she's great, who took me to a yoga studio one day, and it was really cool, and I remember it so vividly, and it took me so long to figure out what the studio was, because once I started teaching and practicing in the real world, I was I want to find the studio and go back.
Oh, yeah.
And they had already moved. They luckily didn't shut down, but they
Good.
moved.
Yeah.
But the studio itself, I just remember having these huge, big glass windows and beautiful, like thin sheer curtains. And they had a wonderful, I don't know what the deity was at the top, but they had a beautiful altar. And it was a little house that this couple, I believe, lived in. It was basically like a mini shotgun. So you walked in, it was like a dining room, a kitchen, hallway, restroom, and then into a room. But if you turned left at 2 points in time, you just go into the rest of the house, which was the yoga studio.
Oh, wow.
It was just huge and beautiful. So I practiced there. I did that with her. So I was doing that at home, got into high school, did yogas in dance and color guard because I liked moving my body. And so I found myself doing the practice, whether knowing it was like yoga, big Y yoga, not stretchy yoga.
Were you doing them with your teachers in the the color guard and everything?
Yeah, we would do it, part of our conditioning, part of our training. But it was also, I do have a vague memory of once or twice our gym teacher teaching us yoga. So it was around.
Good.
Like this movement modality, whether it was called yoga or not, and whether, how deep that goes, had been around and had kind of come in and out within high school, because your girls got mental health problems.
Don't we all?
Yeah, don't we all? I had found a Buddhist temple, so I found meditation separate from yoga necessarily, but also at the same time, yoga with Adrienne was killing it on the YouTube.
Oh, yeah. She's still killing it. That's not me, y'all.
Oh, my God.
That's not me, y'all. As much as I'd love to be yoga with Adrienne, I am not yoga with Adrienne.
But
I'm just the other
just
Adrienne.
as glorious. Just as glorious.
She's amazing.
She's Texan, and I remember when I was first listening to, I think she was doing like a yin type of flow, something super chill. And she said, they call this the Barton Springs pose. And I went, what the hell? I've been there. And then I found out she was from Austin. I said, oh my God, I want to be you when I grow up.
Oh, that's so cool. So you did have the dream of becoming a yoga teacher as your career early on?
100%. It definitely was interesting. I wanted to be in a movement space for sure. Like, I think that creative aspect, I'm not much of an artist in any way as far as like pen to paper type shit. I do randomly get sparks and put a lot of rocks together and it looks cool. But that's about it.
Yeah.
But movement modality and movement creativity has always been a way that I, one, soothed the brain, and two, soothed my nervous system, and three, found peace within my body. Because I feel like a lot of my life, and even continuing now through being a student for a long time, being a teacher, continuously dueling with my body for multitudes of different reasons. So any movement modality was going to make me happy. With that being said, in high school, I definitely was full-fledged because my mom had just opened her salon, Medusa.
We could totally promote the shit out of your mom's salon.
Yeah, we promote Medusa because she's amazing.
Yeah, she is.
My mom's name is Marguerite, not Medusa, but
That's true.
check her out. That's Medusa the Salon. So they opened when I was like 14, 15. And started working with her, got my shampoo license, and I definitely have a memory of telling my high school history teacher, fuck off, I don't need this shit. I'm going to be a hairstylist, bitch. I don't need you. And I did. Yeah. Well, kind of. I worked in the salon industry for a while, in her salon, and then also not, and then back in her salon. And so that really was like the thought, and the goal was to be under my mom's wing and then to eventually overtake her.
Yeah, the family business.
Yeah, the family business.
Yes.
And
Succession.
Yeah, exactly. Like I wanted to fully take it over. But that fled away, and that is actually kind of what brings me into the part of my story, my origin, I guess hopping out of origin. But of what brought me to be a yoga teacher was I had worked different salon, ran away for a little bit, came back, worked at a different salon, worked at Medusa also, and then worked at Starbucks. And, you know, still all through all of that was finding a lot of peace and solitude and movement, which really was just at home. Yeah. At that point in my early adulthood. And then Lisa, who was the yoga studio is no longer around, but she was 5 Points Locals owner, and so that was a restaurant and yoga studio, which was super cool.
That place.
That sounds
was
so
fucking
cool.
It was so
beautiful.
cool. It was right down the street from
They had delicious
McCullough Hildebrand.
Oh,
yeah,
vegan,
amazing food,
fresh.
Yeah,
and the upstairs, the yoga studio,
all windows is light
windows
blue
around.
Yeah,
trees.
Yeah,
it was.
You would have never
vibe.
guessed that you were like literally right outside of downtown.
I love that.
It was amazing. And so she actually was one of the stylists' regular clients. So she had come in one day, and I don't know how. Like I love that stylist in general. Her name was Erica. I'll stan her. But I was like in a conversation with them somehow, and Lisa said, "Oh, I just opened this space. Like y'all should definitely come by and check it out. We have yoga there. We have this food, whatever." And me and Erica went, "Oh, yoga. Have you done yoga?" "Oh, yeah, I have, but I haven't done it in a while." "Okay, yeah, I want to go check it out." So we ended up regularly going once a week on Wednesdays at noon. Nice. So we'd take off. She'd block off her schedule. I told my mom, "Hey, I'm skedaddling. Like, I got to go. Get someone to work the front desk." But no, I started doing that regularly. And that's what brought me out of it, was eventually every single day turned into dreading being in the salon or any other job that I had. And at any chance that I got, going to yoga, any single chance. It was literally got in a car accident, leaving the salon, still drove to go do yoga.
You're like, "Don't worry, car. You'll be here when I get out."
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. And I remember Ashley, who was my teacher at the time and still a wonderful, wonderful person, Ashley Ludwig. But she was like, "Are you good?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, I'm fine. They just hit the front. It's fine." And she's like, "Where'd they hit it?" And I was like, the driver wheel." And she was like,
where the engine is?
Yeah, right where you were, though.
Yeah.
Like, she hit your door. And I was like, "Well, like, not on the..." I made it. It's fine. I'll deal with it later.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like, let me unroll my mat.
Literally, I just need to be here right now.
I need this more than ever. Right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that is really interesting, is that there is that overwhelming urge within that once you find comfort in movement, any movement, it's like you just crave it and you want it.
I can't not have this.
Right.
I literally will not adult so that I can go get that movement.
Yeah. Well, as you should.
Consistency in my life. Yeah. So that got me out into the studios in public. That's where my practice became public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to go back for a second because you were saying something about your body.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about kind of your relationship. We talked about this with Drea, and I've talked about it before on the podcast, but like your relationship with your body.
Yeah.
Right. So as a woman, right, it's a constant comparison. It's a constant battle because of the society that we live in and what we are seeing and what we are being told as children.
Tiny little children.
Yes.
That don't need to worry about that.
Right.
Yeah, I never
right.
needed to worry about that shit, but
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I was told to. So you know that TikTok we just made that said I have a lot of insecurity.
Yeah.
Literally me.
That's you. Yeah.
Or I have
yeah.
low self-esteem or whatever.
Yeah.
So with my body in general, I think I will say like I don't feel like my parents ever outright were like, you're big or you're too big. But it was the underlying things. And I love my parents.
Yeah.
I love them. Love you, mom. Love you, dad.
Hey,
very, very much.
As parents, we're just doing the best we got.
Y'all
with what we have.
y'all were and are humans, and there's only a certain extent. I struggle raising my dogs. Like, and you had two rambunctious Aries children.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Bless your soul. You did the best you could. With that, there definitely was a lot, specifically for my mom, but not only my mom. Like my dad, I just remember saying like, you shouldn't eat that. That's not healthy. And also we were not wealthy at all. And so it was, even if it was mindful or not, having the, hey, don't go into the kitchen to just grab food mentality, whether it was because we couldn't afford to lose any ingredients that weren't towards something, or just because we were eating too much, or because I was big, or, whatever it may be, having the restriction of the kitchen.
That's interesting.
It was, but it was, like, I don't want to say it's 100% because, Magenta's too fat. Like, she can't eat, but it was hard.
I had that. That's interesting that you said that because I remember being a kid and it was like, no, we're having dinner at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I just got home from school and I'm hungry.
Yeah.
No, you have to wait.
Yeah.
And I never thought about it. And it wasn't that my parents were trying to,
it just doesn't really
shame.
click. And it's literally just like, they're just surviving and they're doing what they can to make sure that we have food on our table.
Yeah.
So there was that. And then I think also just seeing my mom diet and then also being on those diets with her or hearing like, oh, well, we're going to eat this because this is better for us. Or, like, and also just constantly seeing, that's the other thing with kind of the like Cosmo world that has changed a lot in recent years. And I'm so grateful for it. But back then, and especially in the salon that she was working for at the time, it was all Euro fashion. It was very thin, very tiny, very, Yeah. That's all what it was. Everything's low waist, everything's no fat, don't have a butt, don't have boobs,
right,
like
nothing.
Like even the vice versa of what we praise now, which even then is still like, God, that doesn't make me feel good about myself either.
Yeah.
I think seeing her do that, having that restriction, being put on diets, for whatever else, having a family member challenge me to who could lose the most weight over the summer, like things like that were just deep rooted in my brain. And I could probably dig up as much as I wanted to, but I've unlocked and then sorted through enough of them. I'm like, okay, we're here now. Yeah. With that being said, full-fledged eating disorder on and off throughout high school. Like would throw my food out of my door, even though we could barely afford food, like throw my food out of the door, not eat at all, had friends worried. And even then through all of that, moving. So it was also like, hey, you're still burning shit.
Yeah.
Like you are burning through these calories, these minimal calories you have. We need to eat. And so binge would come, like things just back and forth. And it was always because I'm Hispanic, like my family, my beautiful, beautiful, beautiful aunts and cousins and everybody, nobody's skinny. Yeah. Ain't nobody skinny in my family. Yeah. They are voluptuous, beautiful women, and they all look different from each other on top of that. It doesn't matter how close the genes are, you are all beautiful, beautiful women. And so with that being said, fighting the body, what it naturally wants to do, because that's just what my body wanted to do, and that's my genetics, and that's how bodies work. Yeah. And then continuing on through that, I mean, even up into today, like fighting food and fighting well, if I eat that, I'm going to feel like this, or I really didn't do that much today, so maybe I don't eat that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, those little things that I've gotten really good at rewriting, then really bad at rewriting.
It's a daily struggle, I think.
It's always just to be smaller.
It's constant.
Constantly. And it's, at this point, I will say after COVID a little bit, and then especially within the last year, I feel like just as my practice and my movement, both in like yoga asana, but also like I started doing boxing recently, and I started going to a Krav Maga gym, and like
I want to do boxing
it's
so badly. So you need to take me with you.
It's so much fun, and I look like an idiot, and I love it because I love it.
I want to do it.
So
I want to do
cool.
it so badly.
But it is like I think being in that space, because I know a lot of people, you know, at any gym want to lose a lot of weight, and even in the yoga studio, people come in and like, oh, I got this workout, I'm slimming down.
Yeah, right.
You know, whatever, and then starting to teach core, I see a lot of that as well. But it has, I will say, definitely not completely cured, but has allowed this really beautiful switch in my brain to say, hey, like, you deserve to eat fully.
Yeah.
And like, oh, this delicious food that you love, that you used to restrict yourself from, actually is going to help you for what you need right now. Like, hey, you need a quick spurt of energy, eat some candy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you're going to be able to dispense that calorie and that sugar really, really, really quick, and it's not going to kill you.
No, it's not going to kill you.
Again, not fully healed, but that has been something within the recent year of just being a little bit stronger in my practice, more challenged, allowing myself to work harder within that, blending in like mat Pilates stuff, and then now doing all of that like gym stuff again. That one's been interesting.
Well, do you remember, and I don't know, we can cut this out if you don't want it in there. But when you and I first started teaching together, you would always wear long sleeves.
I still do.
Because she likes to sweat.
Yeah.
I like to sweat when I want to. Yeah. I know. I also hated my arms.
But that's what I'm saying
Very
is
much
like
so.
there was a while where you were fully covered.
Yeah.
But the past year,
It's
I haven't
lightened up.
seen you
It's
as
lightened up.
covered.
I will definitely say if you come to one of my classes, I'm wearing full leggings and long sleeves, and that is more for chi and arm balance.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
won't slip if you're not skin to skin.
Yeah.
If you got some clothes, you most likely won't slip.
Yeah.
There is that. I will like that has switched a little bit within my brain, which I'm really grateful for. But within the past, I would say probably a month. Again, all of this is really, really recent. I started wearing, this is so crazy, guys.
A color.
No, well, never.
A color. I mean, a color other than black. I should say.
No, it's not
Never.
that. I don't think that will ever happen. Black, white, and blue. That's all I do.
Yep.
But no, I started wearing crop tops.
Wow.
And like being in tank tops, not in practice so
Right.
much, like on my bike or going on hikes or whatever, but like
I love crop tops.
I know, and you look so fucking delicious.
I do.
Oh yeah.
Mama, you
Yeah.
banging.
Yeah, you are
Like,
banging, baby.
You
You're banging.
are banging. And I know we can say it, and whether we should say it or not, I know that's also a conversation as well of like, you, to me as a homie, as a friend, like you're beautiful. You've always been beautiful. You continue to be beautiful. Like nothing can taint that. But it's hard for us to accept that for ourselves.
It is.
It's so hard.
100%.
And because we talked a little bit about body image in my episode, and it's something I'm definitely struggling more with now than over the last year. I think a lot of it has to do with my hormones, but I'm the heaviest I've ever been, and I just like can't get that out of my brain.
Well, and that's going to continue to
know?
perpetuate the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
Like that to me, we were talking about this earlier. Looking at the pictures downstairs.
Yeah.
She's like, doesn't even look like you. And I'm like, that was like 20 years ago, but I still think I look like that. And she's like, no, your face is different.
Like
I'm
you're
like,
angular.
yeah. And I was like, well, I was heavier. Like I had more, meat on me.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, I don't know, back then I thought I was a fat, ugly piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like I would look at myself in the mirror and it wasn't until my yoga practice and not just the asana, but the actual other limbs of
Full
yoga.
on.
Yeah. Full yoga
Yeah.
practice that I
Big Y
understood.
yoga.
Yeah, exactly. The
Different.
overarching that I realized that I'm beautiful on the inside. And as soon as I believe that, the weight fell off.
Changes.
Everything changed. It was the perspective that I had on myself. So like, try this when you get home. Go to your mirror in your bathroom, close your eyes, okay? And say something terrible about yourself, the way you look, okay? Whether it's like, oh, I can see the little fat pocket between my bra and my upper arm and my tank top, right? Like, I fucking hate that thing, right? So like that little space right there, and then open your eyes, and that's all you'll see is the negative.
Yeah, you hyperfocus.
Right. But then if you close your eyes and you say, wow, I really feel beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a good person. Like, I shine my light so that others can shine theirs.
It's different.
Right. And you open your eyes, that's what you're going to see.
Yeah.
So the more that you can condition yourself to stop being the bully and embrace that that's inside of you, whatever your exterior looks like, it'll start to match.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And there's that beautiful power of yoga that you will manifest whatever you want. Like, and it takes a certain, we see this a lot with like what do you call it, like toxic gurus or like false gurus, where they're like, I accomplished this, and this. This doesn't mean that their journey in the past isn't valid and valued. But once they got there and they started, taking advantage of everybody around them and started going, being weird and whichever way that wants to go, we have, unfortunately, a lot of representation for that.
Yeah, we do.
If you are not in your purest, if you are not following all 8 limbs, yoga is still going to give you what you want. And it really depends on how you take it and what you do with it. So the same thing is like, I think being able to be on your mat, off of your mat, saying, repeating to yourself your yamas and niyamas, being able to resonate with yourself within your equanimity and allowing yourself to be both, be dualistic, like allow yourself to truly, truly honor those thoughts as they come, but not hold on to them so tightly, and then see what manifests out of that, or see what begins to kind of curate itself within your mind. Because I will also say, I know you just said, and this could be on and off or off, that you're at your biggest. I'm at my smallest, and I am still so fucking stressed about my body. Like, I am in fear that I'm going to gain it back. And even at that, I'm like, the one thing that I have to truly fear in my realistic space is my unwellness when I was there. But if I realistically got to that size but was still as healthy as I am now, as far as like staying on top of actually moving, actually eating food that my body wants to eat and not just whatever is around, like, you're super healthy. You're still moving, and I don't know what you eat every day.
Well, I think bottom line is you can manifest whatever the fuck you want. When your hormones are fucked up, you're screwed.
Dog, that shit, like, I don't even know how to fucking,
like,
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
know any of
There's
that.
other things naturopathically and Ayurvedically
in
that you
play.
can do, but you've got hormonal issues for women, for men.
Yeah.
They're serious, and they need to be dealt with. And I'm glad that you are, and I'm glad that you have the balls to go after that too, because it's easy to say like, oh, my hormones are fucked up and I don't know what to do about it. But you're like, my hormones are fucked up.
Because that's
and
how
I'm-
I talk.
Yeah, that's what you're
exactly.
That's exactly how you talk. But you have that realistic, and then so you're moving, and so you're, like, you have a knowledge, appreciation, and honor of your body that it is also okay to be your biggest. Like, I think that's something along the side of like where we're at is like, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fucking fine.
Like, why? Like, I'm just like,
Why?
oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like,
But it
it's
is like, it's
fine.
that self-talk, that immediate, like, I think saying something like that hits the brain and the nervous system in a different way, and it can spark up a lot of different things. But it's also like, I think the soothed and the wise side of the mind can say like, okay, and
Yeah.
and you're walking and you're living and you're breathing and you're moving and
And you're
like,
making other people happy.
yeah, and you're
bringing
sharing
joy.
your magical ass around the fucking city.
Exactly.
dog.
Exactly. I mean, and I think too, like, women will probably for always deal with body image issues. We always will.
100%,
But it's
yeah.
more about like, how about we stop criticizing each other or picking each other apart and start to support each other like we do.
I will say I'm very, very, very excited. And it's funny because I realize how small my circle is, how open my circle's minds are, but how small it is at the same time. Because I do not have mean friends. Like, I don't have a single friend that when I have a group of girls, they're what do we call them? What is it? Verbose or voluptuous not Virgo. Venus babes.
Oh,
Something like
nice.
that. I don't know.
Bunch of V's.
Anyways, I used to call them the moon babies, but we changed it up a little bit. But the second that I was like, okay, I really want to start wearing fucking crop tops. I know it's very silly, very fucking
it's
silly.
not silly. It's not silly at all.
But like showing my lower tummy makes me incredibly anxious. Showing my arms makes me incredibly anxious, even though I've had I don't know how many people telling me like, "Damn, I love your fucking arms," and I'm like, "Gross, why?
Yeah, I know.
What's wrong with you?"
Right.
And they're like, "I've always wanted arms like you." I'm like, "I don't know what you mean, but whatever."
Yeah.
So I communicated with them. I was like, "Hey, like, I really want to do this." Like, and they were like, "Do it," supportive. Like, that is my friend group.
Yeah.
That is my friend group, and that is the people that I call around. Because I think if I told you the same thing, you'd be like, "Yeah, okay." Go to HEB. I'm messaging them in HEB. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in HEB. I have a crop top.
I have a crop top on.
What am I
Fucking
doing?
crop top on.
But like, I don't think, luckily, anybody that I have in my day-to-day circle or like what I've just acclimated around me would be like, ew, gross.
No.
And I'm so glad that either the world has shifted away from that pretty graciously to
feel like it
like
has
a
a little
full
bit.
acceptance, or that
Slightly.
I just made the world that way.
Yeah, I think it's also perception, right? It's our perception of the world.
My brain said, this is how it is now. And I
Yeah.
said, okay, yeah. Because definitely, like, online is different. Online is when, like, I'll see things on TikTok and comments and I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Why would you say that?
Oh, I can't. I don't look at any of the comments on
Yeah.
anything anymore because it's just not worth it to me.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear anybody else's opinion on somebody else's beautiful picture that they posted. You
Yeah.
know, and fuck it.
Sure, you took your time to post that shit. Do it.
So Magenta. So you started practicing at 5 Points Local because Lisa brought you into that
Yeah,
space. So you're practicing how many times a week at that point?
For the most part, I think it was probably 1 to 2 to, on a wonderful week, 3.
That's good.
And like as it began, it was like once a week. It was that Wednesdays at noon.
Yeah.
And then maybe a few months into it, I started also going on the Saturdays because they had a community flow. And then I also found this class on Tuesday, and it really was like I tried.
Any chance. You
Yeah,
were like,
kind of
yeah,
in the chance. I was like, okay, yes, I can do this. But I was also working like 3 jobs.
Yeah.
So
you were fitting it in where you could.
yeah, where I could, but pretty sturdily that Wednesday.
So when did you start to notice changes off your mat and
Yeah.
like that yoga was having an effect on?
So I will say prior to 5 Points, prior to graduating, meditation and movement helped me recognize that I needed help. Like, I remember breaking down on the floor in my narrow, tiny hallway in my childhood home and yelling at my dad that I needed help. And, like, my dad's a soft one to me. He's, but I remember, like, I could feel it in my body still. I can see it. And I can also, at this point, see it from his perspective. Like, I had a full break. And that was, I feel like, only thoroughly recognized through mindfulness, but more of my like meditation proper.
What brought you to that point?
A lot of shit. I think just continuous different types of trauma. I think a lot of holding stuff in. I had a beautiful childhood and a simultaneously incredibly hard childhood for multitudes of different reasons, just like I think many people do. But I think I had held on to a lot of energy that was not mine to hold, and did not let that go, and it fermented so much that it had to get out somewhere. So then when I started moving, even though I had shoved it down, I started moving my shit and it started going, fuck no.
Yeah.
Or I started tapping in and even just like asking questions about myself to myself and didn't like it, you know? And so I remember that through that therapy, meditation, and then with 5 Points, a grand step forward, right? Because then it was like, this is when the practice truly, yoga, as itself. I feel like truly happened in its pureness. Was going to 5 points as much as I could. And within that was, I think, the recognition of myself that helped change my life around me. I don't want to say the world around me.
Right.
But I felt like I was allowed to not fight anymore. And I definitely felt a lot of just my like pure stemmed rage within me begin to diminish. A lot of just like reactionary shit stopped happening. This isn't to say like I was an asshole. I was an asshole. But like, but at the same time I wasn't, right? Like I knew when to hold my shit. I knew how to act.
Right.
But it was internally where it was like, okay, this begins to change. And I think probably, so I was doing that, I was taking classes. I saw the change for myself. I got out of one of the worst, like physically, emotionally, mentally abusive relationships that I had ever had, and was still practicing yoga. And like, I like to call that my punching bag relationship, because it literally felt like he put me in a punching bag and would just kick my ass and do whatever he could on all levels.
Oh my God.
To fucking demolish me and to keep me in. But the one thing he never took away was yoga, which made no sense.
Yeah.
Because he was, every man, specifically man, was an enemy to him. But he, it's weird. I talked to my friends about it, and it's literally, it seems like the universe was like, no. You're not taking this away. Like, you cannot. And he would support it. Like, we could be in the worst fist fight I've ever fucking had in my life, and I'd say, I need to do yoga, and he'd leave the room.
Wow.
That's the only time I could lock the door. And it's not who you're thinking about either. It's somebody before that.
It was like a safe word almost.
Literally, yeah. And like, I could go to yoga classes, but I couldn't go to the grocery store by myself.
Because he was afraid that a guy was going to
Like a
come
guy.
and take you.
Yeah. I couldn't go to the gym by myself. Like, I couldn't go and do anything I couldn't go to my mom's house.
How long were you with him?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. Like, I reckon it's a couple of months. I think it's a couple of months, but like in my head, it was like there was a 6-month mark, but I highly doubt that it lasted 6 months. But it was wild too, because if this shows you how good of decisions I make in my life, we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend until the day I was moving my stuff into his house.
Wow.
Literally, like, we were just talking, and like, I really needed to get out of the space that I was living in at that time. I didn't know much about him. Like, he was kind of handsome, muscular dude, and I was just like, and I remember people, because it was when I worked at Draft House, people were like, maybe not. And I was just like, no, like, I kind of like him. And everyone was like, okay. But like, I did have the good people that were like, I've heard this, or I've heard, whatever.
Yeah.
And so we go through with it, and it's terrible and it's rough, and I have no marking of time, and I have no clue why I accepted the things that I accepted and did the things that I did. But yoga was a safe word.
Yeah.
Yoga was okay, you're going to do that. Okay, cool. Like, even came to a yoga class one time with me. That was terrible.
I
It was
bet.
so much fun.
You're like having your enemy in
Literally,
your...
it was so, and he's not that person at all. He was a crazy strong power lifter, and so that was like his shit was like hard.
Yeah,
and I was
yeah.
like,
yeah.
even though it's like hard too, but like we were opposite in that way. And so go to that, go do that yoga. I lost my track. What was
No.
What brought me back?
Yeah,
Like when did you start to notice things?
The
Off
change.
your mat, yeah.
So definitely getting within that, keeping my practice, but also I don't think I would have ever left that space. I think I would have died in that house without yoga. Like, genuinely, I, just for the fact that I put up with some of that shit either way, but like, yoga did give me an ounce of self-worth, and it was also not just yoga in the practice, but yoga in the community, because I remember my teacher asking me about him and being like, oh, your partner, this person, I'm not gonna say his
No, don't. Yeah.
like, how's that going? And just like, for some reason, right at the time, for some reason, I don't know why, I couldn't help but tell her the truth. in reality now I know it's because that was my safe space, and I felt like I could do nothing because my guard was down. And I don't think without having that teacher ask me, like, how's home life? How is
They
this
could
going?
probably tell.
Yeah.
They could
And
probably.
like without that, I don't think life would have changed. And from there, broke up, got into a different house, got into different living, took teacher training.
Amazing.
Because of that teacher, because of 5 points. And I didn't even go there. I went somewhere else.
Oh, that's funny.
But I literally was like, I need to get in teacher training now. And they're like, we don't start our next semester until September. It was a few months away. And I was like, well, I'm going to go over here then.
Yeah. You do what you got to do.
And they supported it. They were like, fuck yeah, go do it. But genuinely, like, that kind of strength and self-worth, because in the relationships that I had before that, I was groveling, even though I've had a rough past in relationships. I've also been not that great in relationships too. I could say that. But like, for the most part, yoga, the biggest shift and change that I was able to see was my willpower for myself and my acceptance of my needs and desires. But also just like full on this almost courage that's like, no, like, it's stick your fucking head out, call your mom, call your stepdad, get out of here. Like, it's fine if you're homeless, it's fine if you're this, it's fine if you're that. But like, that I don't think would have been accomplished without yoga and the surrounding community around yoga that I was in.
Yeah. Well, it's like you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like you became an advocate for yourself.
100%. Yeah.
And you let yourself do that. And I think being in bad relationships, whether they're physical, emotional, verbal, abusive, whatever you encounter in your relationships, there's a point where it's easier to stay. We tell ourselves that it's easier to stay than to break
tell
up.
my mom about this. Like, I just remember being like, I don't want to tell my parents that I fucked up this bad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the disappointment or the worry of a judgment from others, or
100%.
You know, or fear of lack of having a home or money or security. And really the security's from within.
Yeah.
The security's from
100%.
within. And I feel like I was going to ask you about the relationship thing, because one of the other things that I was going to ask you about too, and it's kind of off subject, but you have a wonderful, loving relationship that you're in right now. Yeah. But you had said to me at one point that you don't let people come into your house.
Oh, no. Yeah, you saw the first person you met that I was dating prior to this partner now. I had told you, I was like, oh no, she can't come over to my house.
Yeah. Yeah. I was curious about that. So like, and I asked you a little bit about
I've been to your house.
I know. I love you.
You're allowed. You're
You
allowed.
and like nobody else unless they were a partner, except for that one partner.
Would I be allowed in your house?
Yeah.
You could say no. You could say no.
It's messy. So it also is really cool. Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I was just going to ask you, like, where did that come from?
Letting him in my house?
No. Just like
Not letting people in
not
your
letting
house.
people in, like, because you obviously were with other people who had homes, and they had people that would come over.
Yeah.
But how did you decide to make your home?
It's my sanctuary. 100%. So this also comes from me, who has lived with almost every single significant relationship that I've had in the past adult life, 7 years. And so there was a point, so after that really bad relationship that I just talked about, that I lived fully alone for the first time. And I remember loving it so much.
The peace.
The peace. The no worry, not like, I just do what I want, I feel how I want, I decorate how I want, and just that safety and security I had in it. And so I was very similar then. I would, probably not as strict then, actually. I would have people over, but I would rarely have people over at that house. Different house than I'm in now. But I would have, like, I threw a party or two.
Yeah.
And so that was fine. But I loved living by myself. And I remember tasting that, and then I fell in love with somebody else. I'm also a very big lover.
Yes, you are.
I love hard.
You love hard, and I love that about you too.
I love hard. I love big. Fell in love with somebody. He ended up moving into that house with me. And so went from living alone.
And that's the person I'm thinking of.
No.
More.
I've had a lot of relationships.
That's fine. You should.
Yeah, I do. I browse, you
Yes.
know, and then move in with them and then go, oh no.
Oh no.
I will say the relationship
I
I'm
did
in
not
now
browse
is
long
the
enough.
first one that I have not said oh no to.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I don't think ever. He's beautiful. and
He's a
wonderful,
keeper.
and I want to cry. I love him so much.
Love that.
It's also just the getting into the acceptance of the relationship that I have now is a whole other episode and topic of like having a healthy relationship for the first time after unhealthy relationships. Like having somebody that genuinely listens to you and says sorry without arguing.
Yeah.
Without invalid. Anyways. Yeah.
No, that's true though.
Praise cancer men. I
Yeah.
know a lot of people will say, ew.
But
I'm
you
just
love
saying.
it.
It's something about the 16th that works.
But it's interesting though, because I love the fact that you put up boundaries
Yeah.
around
So-
your safe place.
Yeah. So that boundary. So I fell in love with somebody. We moved in. He moved in there. And that was also that was like a 2-year long relationship ordeal that probably should have been like a week, honestly. Maybe like a month max.
Yeah.
But it was just, man, I'm head over heels for you, and you got issues and I got issues, and I want to help you deal with your issues. And then, you know, so we moved into the house that I'm in now together. We moved in there as a couple, and quickly. I mean, before we moved into that house, but especially once we moved into it, it was almost like the house made a statement that was like, no, this is not allowed. This is not working. And so that went down as it did. I think he was in the house with me for a year, maybe. Broke up with him, was not dating, did not want to. I wanted to be by myself. Kind of on and off with him a little bit. But I also remember getting back into this new house, but getting back into, oh my God, this is my sanctuary again.
Yeah.
Like, this is mine.
Yeah.
I can do what I want with it.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting too, because we never decorated, like through that whole year or whatever that he was in there. We didn't decorate shit. Like we put up what was needed and what was necessary, which I still kind of am like that, but like there was
Probably a sign.
Yeah, exactly.
And the second he left, I got free time.
Yeah.
And I fucking started making everything and decorating everything, and it flourished. And I could, like, everything was just like, oh my God, okay, I don't want to, okay, so this is my space. And even then, I didn't let people come over. Like, from him, I didn't have people over a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, ever, until I think I got my next partner, who you would think about. So I was alone for a little bit, and I dated and, you know, fooled around, had fun.
Yeah.
But would not let anybody come to my house. Nobody could come to my house. None of my friends came to my house. I just, you know, I would go to their house. I wasn't really worried about it. This was my house. This is my space. Started dating somebody. He moves in pretty quickly as well. And that, I feel like that was like a necessity thing, if I can remember. I think my insecurity at the time wanted him to be there just because that's what I wanted and that's what I like. I do love living with partners.
Yeah.
But it was...
Do you think that's kind of why you didn't want anybody to come to your house, is because there was almost like a...
Yeah.
It not maybe not consciously, but like a habit of just being
you're
living
here now.
partners. So you're here now.
Yeah.
You're mine.
I'm in love with you now.
Yeah.
You're not leaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably also a safety thing. Also just I don't want anybody to fuck with my shit.
Yeah.
Type thing.
Of just having it go badly. You're just like, actually, no, I'm going to put up
This is my
barrier
space.
so
I
that
don't
this
want to
doesn't
have the
happen
memory
again.
of you here. I don't want your energy in my house. There's a lot of, on multiple levels, I think, the reasons why. So I let him in, and actually Drea was there for a lot of it, for the end of it. So I think maybe we were together for a year, maybe. And it was
probably about a year.
Yeah, it was probably about a year, but it was a prolonged end.
Oh God.
A really prolonged end. But I just remember being like,
Drea's like,
I
yes, you did.
Every time we talked on the phone in the morning
Is he
during
gone
COVID,
yet?
he's still fucking there, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do?
It was during COVID too.
It was during COVID,
Fuck.
and this motherfucker.
Well, because didn't he move in like a couple months
It
before.
was like right before. Yeah. It
Yeah,
was not
that's what
that
I
long
remember.
before COVID hit. And that even necessarily,
Side note,
yeah.
because I took you took teacher training, not with me,
Yeah.
but at the same
space.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
yeah.
how.
What was the timing
that's how we
between?
met.
You were the one before me?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think maybe there was one session in between, but
Maybe,
at the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a year apart. Year or so
That's so
apart.
crazy.
But yeah, no. Drea and I go way back.
I know. I love that. I love
She
that.
empowered me to break up with that guy and to actually kick him out, and like even gave me legal notes. It was like, no, he needs to leave. He's not on the lease. I'm like, wait, how do I tell him that?
Yeah. He's a squatter. He's a squatter.
Well, I had my own experience with
Yeah.
like trying to get someone out of my house who was on the lease.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's not good.
He got himself kicked out because he broke something, and I was just like,
There you go.
Get the fuck out.
fucking broke.
I
the
was
door 'cause he
waiting.
kicked it in, so yeah, he
Yeah,
has to leave.
I was waiting, and there's a lot of reasons for that too.
Yeah.
Get him out, right? Continue to build the house the way that I like it, even with him there. And we had kind of whatever spaces, but I remember getting him out, having my space alone time during COVID for one, beautiful, amazing. But two, from there, I was single and celibate for a little over a year, purposefully, as best as I could.
Yeah.
So maybe not right after him.
Wait, I'm sorry.
As you could.
Wait, let's clarify this. Celibacy is pretty cut and dry. It's either in or it's not.
She's like, I dipped my toe. I don't know.
Yeah, the backyard don't count. No.
When
That's
I'm
not
in
what
the
I meant.
house, I'm celibate.
Yeah, right. In my sanctuary, I was, but nowhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Nobody was allowed in.
I say that because I think a little bit right after him. So it was really funny because back to what brought us here, mindfulness and yoga. Is actually so that carried on throughout all of this, right? That's just a continuous thread. That's my practice. That's my life. But that is what made me, one, recognize that I needed to dump his ass and get him out of my house. But two was the thing that allowed me the awareness of saying, hey, I'm not fully healed from the relationship before you, and I'm getting the same issues again. It was literally the same scenario. It was the same issues, not the same reaction necessarily, and not like the one before had an alcohol problem. This one was dumb. You smoked on weed all the time, but like same shit, same difference.
Yeah.
Sometimes I advocate weed more than alcohol, but
Yeah, me too.
whatever, tootsie toot. Love tequila. But so like, I just remember in my meditations and in my practices and in our card readings, like I literally was like, oh my God, I'm not healed. Like there is a deep inner wound that I did not heal from before the past relationship, but accumulated in that one. And now because I told myself, I told myself, I'm going to be single. I want to be single. I want my time alone. And then immediately got in this relationship with this dude and he moved in. So it just blew up in my face. And I remember, coming to the end of his story was me telling him, hey, I'm not healed and I want to be better for me and for you. Can we take a break? And he said, no. And he said, no. And I went, what do you mean? And I was like, dude, I'm not well.
That
and
was the
we're
wild thing about it.
yeah, like we're not happy. We're not happy. We're not in a good relationship. Like it's not like we have this beautiful relationship and all of a sudden it's halting. We had an okay relationship and I'm not well and I need to fix that.
Yeah.
And I need to help myself. Whether it's for you or for me or whatever, like it's for us.
Yeah.
It literally was like not even trying to break up, just a break. He said no, and I said, fuck you, I'm breaking up with you then.
Good. Good for you.
And so that took a while. And then the celibacy thing was because maybe just a little bit after him, I had some escapades.
Yes.
And
there
then
you
I
go.
was celibate.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then I went, I don't want anybody in my energy, my sacral space in my house, my sacred space in my house, but I don't want anybody in my sacral space, period.
Yeah.
Because that's where everything was coming from.
Yeah.
Everything was my security, my fluidity, like and it was just like a leaning tower of Pisa breaking down, like absolutely terrible for my energy centers. So got that out, had that year and however long, was on my own, healing, doing my practice, doing my thing, happy doing that. And within that, nobody came over. And it became a really strong thing. Like, I think it had kind of happened in the past of like just being a theme that I don't really invite people over in this house in particular. Again, like the red house, I had my solo times, but I had some friends over once in a while. This one was genuinely like, this house is my healing house.
Yeah. And I think it really does go back to the idea of like you were almost in protective mode.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're protecting yourself and you didn't even realize that you were
Yeah.
protecting yourself.
Yeah.
But your body was protecting you.
Yeah. And it's, you know, a whole bunch of different reasons. Like that partner would have friends over for reasons that I was like, hey, I don't want those people to come over.
Yeah.
Like I don't want them to know where I live. I don't want them to have our address. There was that safety and security. But it is also very, very like my childhood house. You could feel the energy as you pass through certain parts of the house. Like it was heavily burdened and stained with trauma and pain from us and from prior space.
Right.
And I just remember my first relationship in the house that I'm in now, and then that one too, those stories kind of living in those doors and those windows and those rooms. And like, I think that in and of itself made me be like, no,
Yeah.
I don't want anybody in here unless I want them to stay.
Yeah.
And so I was alone and then had that partner fling thing when I first met you. I said, no, she's not allowed over my
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I was like, what?
Yeah. And it was like, it's my sanctuary. I don't want anybody's muck in it.
That makes
I don't
sense.
want anyone's muck
It
in
totally
it
makes
unless
sense.
I'm ready to deal with your muck for the rest of my life.
Exactly. So did anyone else notice the change in you once you started practicing
Definitely.
a lot more and then going through teacher training? What were
Yeah.
some of the things people would talk to you about?
Wow, you're not mad. I think anger was my immediate defense. I was always in protection mode. So it was definitely like, oh, you are not as angry anymore or reactive. But also just like, I think my mom recognizing that like I wanted to be alive instead of wanting to like off myself was really big. I definitely know like my dad just being like, you're glowing.
Yeah.
And you feel peaceful. Like my parents, I think those are the people that it matters from in my brain. So I
Yes.
think that's why that sticks in my head. But even as homies, like I have a friend Shelby who is lifelong friends. I've known her since literally my birth because our moms were best friends.
Oh.
Yeah, I love her to bits. But she even was just like, you are like not the rambunctious Aries that you used to be. Like you still like you got that fight in you for
Yeah.
sure. But like it's funny because we switched. She's a Cancer and I'm an Aries, and like we both had our shit. But I was like the tough one. Like,
Yeah.
And she was the yeller, and we kind of switched at one point in time, and then completely switched to where once I was in like yoga and stuff, it was no longer like nothing mattered in a great way.
Right.
You know.
Right. The bullshit of the day
Yeah,
didn't
I think
require
that
the reactions.
Just recognized in my nearest and dearest folk that was just like, man, you don't let shit bother you. Like you're just good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I am just good.
When you
For the
said
most part.
you said that I'm gonna probe here a little bit.
That's okay.
That you said I wanted to live.
Yeah.
I didn't want to off myself.
Yeah. I've
So-
wanted to kill myself the majority of my life. I've tried multiples of times, and this isn't something that's off the books or anything. I definitely, if you go back in my posts, like I talk about it, but I don't talk about it.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
like, it's there, but it's
Yeah.
not there. I think if you've been there, you'd recognize it,
Mm-hmm.
you'd see it. At least I won't even say that because we all have that experience in different ways. I think if you've been in my experience with that or similar, then you'd be able to read it in the words.
Mm-hmm.
Like back in elementary school, fake dead, like that's when that ideation started. Yeah.
Ideation.
There you go. Kind of started like faking dead just to fake dead. Or then later on, it was like, I think like after my parents' divorce and kind of going through all of that shit and just seeing some other stuff, just being like, I don't want to deal with this. I want to die. And then hormones and things. And it becomes like I literally don't know how to deal with this. Like I want to go. And then just deep, like I feel like it lightened up for a little bit and then came back around, back to the body stuff, back to kind of acceptance spaces, back to not wanting to be an adult, but also craving freedom, you know,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of, I think, variations and versions of reasons of why I didn't want to be here anymore. And then genuinely finding yoga and finding that peace within myself that made it worth it, that made me excited. I will also say, I'm 27. I turned 26 in April. Well, no, reverse that. I'm 27. I turned 27 in April. I was 26. If you don't know how to do math,
It's okay.
yeah. So in April, I turned 27. 26 was the year that I swore. Since I was in middle school, I swore I was going to either not make it there completely or specifically like 19 on, 18 on. I swore 26 was it. I was going to die in a car crash, taking a left turn with a white car smashing into me. I knew it. I saw it. It was deep rooted in my subconscious. I was waiting for it. And so the day before my birthday this year, I remember the week. I remember continuously thinking of it as like, it's ticking, man. It's ticking.
gonna happen.
Like, it's gonna happen. And then getting sad about it. And then I had never been sad about it before.
Yeah.
And I literally had always just been like, yeah, it's gonna happen. Either super chill or excited. Where I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't have to do this.
Right.
I don't have to like try to do what I've done before and failed at.
Yeah.
But no, like that week or those couple of days up to it. And I remember too, just like, I told one of my closest friends, Marissa, about it. And she was just like, no, like, I can't imagine that. And I was just like, well, I don't know. Like, and so I had talked to her throughout that week where I was just like, oh my God, I don't want that to happen. Like, I've always been kind of excited about it,
Yeah.
or like waiting. And like, even I think within that week, I started going, well, maybe it's not a physical death. It's like an ego death, or maybe it's some part of me, some old story is going to die. And, you know, like I started switching the narrative, and I finally was like, oh my God, I want to live. Like, I'm excited to be 27. I'm excited to be in the relationship and have this person in my sanctuary and be in my practice and be where I'm at teaching. But genuinely, like, I don't think I would have found that solace without yoga, because a lot of it, when I started thinking about what I would be losing, right? Like, you don't lose anything in death. You're changing. I have a lot of honor and love and acceptance with death. Like, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
Right. Everybody's going to have it.
It's
happen.
hard, like, for the ones that are left behind.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can't always necessarily control. And obviously all situations are different. Some are sicknesses, some are car accidents, some are brought on by themselves, some are brought on by others.
Yeah.
And there's no blanket remedy to any of that. But with it being, in my way, being like, oh my God, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
But then eventually going, oh my God, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
What am I gonna start losing? I'm not gonna get to see the student do that thing. I'm not gonna be able to accomplish this thing. Like, and a lot of it, like good 90% of it had to do with yoga.
Yeah.
Like, whether physical yoga or mental yoga or whatever it was. Like, I'm taking part in, I know I taught for teacher training back then, but like I was asked to be a segment of a teacher training in 2024.
Oh, it's amazing.
And I genuinely, like, that was one of the things that I was like, but then I can't teach that. But then I don't get to do like those things.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of it was yoga. A lot of it was my partner and my friends and my homies, which also 90% of them are yogis.
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the studio. But yeah, like that willingness to be like, oh my God, I do want to be here, or it is kind of bearable. And I think that thread, or that knot, has slowly, like a slow thread being pulled from it throughout my practice has happened, and a big accumulation happened just this past year. And I can genuinely say that I'm happy I made it past 26.
I'm so proud of you for telling that
I'm
story.
excited.
I mean, that means the world to me that you shared that, but also think about what you said you kept waiting for something to die
Yeah.
or leave.
Yeah.
What left was that feeling.
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen anymore. That's what left you.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
To say you want to live is crazy.
I mean, I never saw my life past 21. I never thought I'd make it to 21. I didn't think that I would kill myself. I just did not. I couldn't see it. I had no idea what it was going to be. Yeah, it just wasn't going to happen. But to feel that way about yourself for a majority of your life, and then come to that point and not.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, I got tickled.
Thanks for probing.
I'm going to be the prober. It's not in the back door.
It's like therapy.
It is kind of like therapy.
I mean, yoga is very much therapeutic for me in a multitude of
I always said it was my silent therapy.
Yeah.
It's my silent therapy because I can move my body and I can release my suffering.
It's a lot of like, I think for me, it's kind of like we've talked about kind of that empowerment space for holding space for yourself or for asking those questions and getting uncomfortable. I know I heard y'all talking about in Drea's episode before mine, which you should definitely go check out if you haven't already.
Exactly.
But those things is like it allows you. I also won't say that this is blanket because everybody's minds work in different ways. But for me, I feel like it's allowed me to be my own therapist, especially when I can't afford therapy.
Yeah, that's true too.
But it's also just in times where therapy wouldn't even be applicable. Like when I'm at home and it's 3 a.m. and I'm having these spiraling thoughts, like yoga has given me the tools and the capability to sit up or even just stay there and say, okay, what, when, why, where, how, whatever questions you need to ask and dive deeper into it. And it's also, it's allowed me to be that space for myself and that therapist for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really the idea that we have everything we need.
Yeah.
Just got to access it.
Yeah. It's there.
One thing I think we tell students a lot in class is that your breath is there for you when you need it. And like the practice is there for you when you need it. And I think it's one of those things that you hear, but it's not until sometimes you have like that experience and you can look back and be like, oh, that's what they meant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because we come out of the womb breathing and no one teaches us how to do it.
Yeah.
And then, if you watch a baby breathe, they're belly breathing the whole time. Yeah. Right. And then as soon as they start to get older, they become upper quadrant breathers, chest breathers, upper lung breathers.
Too much about it.
Yeah. And mouth breathers, and all that stuff.
Me driving over here with all my car issues, I was all long drawn and then sending my cool air into
your overheating radiator. It is like 155 degrees outside though.
I'm really hoping that's what it is because the tubes are fine. That's the whole nother. Everything seems fine.
Yeah.
It does not seem like it should have a reason for doing that.
Yeah.
So I don't fucking know.
It's just deciding it's going to be an asshole.
Suck.
All right, so let's go on. I want to ask you about your aha moment. So we talked about this a little bit. Like, is there ever a moment in class when you've been taking class, whether it's, I find aha moments happen frequently.
Yeah.
Some are bigger than others. Yeah. But that moment where it's like everything is perfectly coming together for you on your mat. Yeah. Do you remember like any specific times where you had those?
A couple different ones. Definitely like the first aha moment going into Shavasana, like your first Shavasana, where you're just like,
when
your
you actually
body is melting and your brain is silenced and you're just there.
You're actually still.
Yeah, you're actually still like that's crazy. Or even like when you don't realize that's happening and then they start calling you out and you feel how heavy your body has fallen and just like
we should have said that when we talked earlier when you said what are some of the poses that are the most difficult to teach.
Oh, Shavasana.
Fuck number 100%.
Fuck yeah. Shavasana too is like it's such a freaking struggle when you said that, like when you drop into that space and if you've never done Shavasana, listeners, just go lay down for 5 minutes, set a timer and don't move. Just do that. Just try it. Just observe it, But when I always try my best when I'm teaching is to speak halfway through my time of Shavasana because that's usually the time that I drop in.
Yeah.
So if a teacher is put me in Shavasana at minute 5 before class, 5-minute long Shavasana, and then they don't say anything, I probably won't drop in. It'll take me a long time.
If there isn't a gentle closing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I've been in some classes where it's kind of that way, that they just don't say anything. It's like, okay, lay down.
Yeah. Yeah.
That whole time, if it's just like, and go. I'm like I can feel my shoulders. I can feel. I'm like,
I always like to
fuck.
say something like
Like
relaxing.
I
like,
will guide you out, and it's so at
Yeah.
minimum. At
Yeah.
I don't
minimum,
have
but-
anything to worry about.
Yeah, gentle ideas. Like I do like giving a like. If you're not a visual person, maybe you feel the tip of your right index finger. If you are, maybe you imagine your brain as your safe space, or the river, or a sky. Like
Yeah.
I like giving little things like that, or even just talking about like this week I was doing a lot of the prana vayus, and so specifically prana and apana, and then I like kind of letting that bleed into duality in a form of any chance.
Yeah.
So finding that effort within what's supposed to be easy and
Yes.
soft. And so talking about those things, or even just allowing, like in class today, I had said, recognize where your brain goes, recognize that your mind is thinking, and then recognize the difference between your brain going there and your mind thinking, and your body, and how still it is right now. Feel
Ooh, that was
difference.
that was a good gem you
Like,
dropped on them today.
I love that. I love that, because I think in a lot of my practice and just my life in general, my name's Magenta and I have blue hair. It's contradictory.
Yes.
And it's meant to be.
Yes.
Like I
Yes.
want it to be dualistic.
What some
Yes.
guy in the studio the other day, he was like, "But you have blue hair."
And I said yes. Oh my God, what was his
Where were
name?
that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I yelled at Drea. I was like, man, I should have said, because his last name was Fly. And he said, oh, but your name's Magenta, but you have blue hair. And I said, yeah. And then he walked in and I said, well, your last name's Fly. Why are you walking? But it was like that, that
Yeah,
like,
you're like, oh, I should have said that.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Yeah.
damn it.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I said that. But so I told her, I was like, damn it, that would have been so
Yeah.
good.
It would have been so good. I know. I love the duality of you. I do, really do. And
I
I
like talking
really,
about that.
I love the fact that you have, created space for people to understand their relationship with themselves, right? It's not about us as yoga teachers. We are tour guides. We are just space holders. We are there to co-create.
We're inviters.
Yeah.
We just, here's your invitation.
Yep.
Take it or leave it.
Yep. And it doesn't have to be today. It can be 10 years from now. It'll happen for them when it happens for them. But I want to know, what do you want people to learn from your story or take away from your story?
Oh my God.
I know. I was
Foundation
like,
before flight.
Foundation before flight. I
I
love
love
that.
that.
That's a hard one, but that's been my statement recently. And I feel it and I love it. And I've been really resonating with it. So who knows, in 5 years, I could say, what the fuck was that? And that's okay. But no, I genuinely think, just looking back on definitely where my personal practice has grown and all of the different iterations of it. I've had times of my yoga practice that I barely did any yoga asana, and it was just a lot of meditation or a lot of journaling, or honestly, a lot when I was younger, I would say I was practicing at home, right? A lot of that and that awareness was way more into my ethics and morals than it was my physical practice. But going through all of that, the whole thing was to build foundation and to build strength and to build awareness within myself and allowance within myself that allowed me to fly, but also didn't force me to. And so I've been saying this a lot recently, especially in the couple of years or so that I've been teaching really heavy on arm balances and inversions, has been I don't give a shit if you fly today. I don't give a damn. There is no judgment. But what I want you to do is just ask your body to do something and see what happens. Foundation before flight.
Yeah.
I don't expect anything out of you, and I invite you to not expect anything out of yourself.
Yeah.
But just to communicate.
Yeah.
Whether that be in your shavasana, or if that's going to be in an arm balance, or in your warrior two, it all takes foundation.
I love that.
And then you get to fly.
That makes me happy that you said that, because I feel that, you know, when people first come to the mats, they expect to know what to do. They expect to hit the pose. It's comparison, it's competition, it's all these beliefs that you have limited yourself by. And building the foundation first. What are you giggling
What
at?
is that? I don't know whose quote it is. Cass says it a lot. Of you don't have to be able to touch your toes to be
It's
yoga.
what you learn on the way down.
Yeah, it's that. But then there's also a little dirtier one.
Oh, I want that one.
It's like you don't have to be flexible to do yoga. You just have to be flexible enough to get your head out of your ass. Like that's
a good one. That's a good one.
Love it.
That's so true, though.
Because everybody's response
so
is,
true.
you know, whether you're starting or whether if you've been like, I have a couple students, I feel like I have a handful of students that got away from their yoga practice through COVID and just through life, and have been coming back, which I love seeing. And they're like, oh my God, like my body can still do these things. I was so scared that I lost it. And I, one, was like, your body has muscle memory. You'll get back into it. But two, you got that foundation, dog. Like
That's it.
you're returning back, and that's part of it. We kind of have to leave it for a little bit to get back.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, you don't have to be, if you're brand new, you don't have to be flexible or even strong.
No.
And you've also never had to have this particular movement modality in general. If you've been running, you know your body, you know your stamina. If you've been weightlifting, you know your strength and what you can pull or what you can push. You know, like we all have a certain extent of knowledge of what our body and our mind can do. But when we add our breath, especially because we teach vinyasa, or I teach vinyasa, when we add our breath as that connecting thread and allow it to be kind of that unification or that come together confluence of yourself, it's going to blossom.
Absolutely.
You just got to give it the chance.
That's perfect. That's a perfect way to end it.
Yeah.
So where can people find you? Do you want people to find you or no? We're not sending them to your house. Fuck that shit.
It's messy. I got 2 dogs. Yeah, no, don't come to my house. But it's my handles are Mystic Magenta Yoga. If you want to follow my personal one, Mystic Magenta. I post probably on both of them equally.
Yeah.
So you can follow either one. One's just going to be hyper-focused yoga, and the rest of it is like 90% yoga and 10% bikes and guitars and stuff.
Fun stuff that you like outside
and
of
other
the
things.
mat.
But like most of my life is yoga. So you can find me there. And that's it. That is all I got.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for being open. Thank you for sharing your story. And thank you for, you know, just being you and being able to have these kind of conversations. And one thing I love about Magenta that I didn't say is that Magenta will challenge me on things. Like her and I will both have like totally different opinions on things, but we are respectful and we love each other. Yeah. And I just got whole body chills on that one.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that I like, that you challenge me. You challenge me to think differently. You challenge me to watch my words.
I love that.
So I appreciate you.
Thank you for letting me challenge you. It's an Aries trait that some people hate and some people like. And
Okay.
I love when it's accepted, because I think we all can grow from that, including myself. Like being challenged back, that's something that I learned through yoga. Allowing myself to be challenged back. I'm not always right. I love that.
Yeah, I know. Me too. All right. Well, thank you so much. We love you.
Thank you, Adrienne, and not Mia. Drea.
And we're back.
So what do you think?
First of all, so cool to have a guest on the podcast, like as a co-host, and kind of hear what they ask and what they bring to the table. It's just super, I don't know. It's cool. It's cool to be on the other end, like to have not been there and get to hear the interview, how our listeners get to hear it. And also, I mean, I know and love Magenta. I know and love Drea. So it's just cool to hear them in the space, right? To hear them interacting on the podcast, and to, as always, get to know our guests on a different layer, right? So having known each of them as teachers for, I mean, at least 3 years.
3.5 years,
is one level, and then working with them as coworkers was another level, and then, you know, friendship and seeing each other outside of
you were managing them for a while
as a manager, and then friendship and seeing each other outside of that. Like Drea and I do game nights, right? And I was invited to Magenta's birthday. Thank you, Magenta. You know, like it's just another layer. And then being able to hear their story, right? And I think that's almost the experience a lot of people have in YTT. And that's kind of something I'm realizing, like, this is almost like a microcosm of that. Because in YTT, you spend so much time with people and you get to know them on a deeper level. And this podcast is almost like a sampling of that. Like, right, we're asking people to dig deeper and to tell us about really ultimately sometimes these intimate pieces of themselves or these life-changing pieces, even if it's not always intimate, it's personal. So always just an honor to be able to learn.
You know, and I just keep thinking back to the time where we were sitting around the studio last October, end of October, and we were like, let's do a podcast. December, we had everything together. January, we did our first interview. And then, you know, this was the idea that you and I had. And then to be able to open it up to our friends and family members that we've made over the years, it's just really cool. It is cool. And it was so neat to have Drea on and asking questions and also being there for support for Magenta. You know, I think that when we started it, we didn't think that it was going to be as intense for some people to tell their stories, and a lot of people have told us that it's been very cathartic. They've learned a lot about themselves. They've gotten new followers, or they've gotten new connections out there, and that just means the world to us, because the podcast is not about Mia and I. The podcast is about yoga and the impact it has on everyone
In our community.
Yeah, everybody.
I think as a listener, what immediately stood out to me was Ahimsa.
Nice.
It is something we have talked about before. It's one of the first components of philosophy that I think is shared with us when we're like getting deeper into a yoga practice. At least that's my experience. I notice a lot of teachers will incorporate it in classes. We learn about it very early when we're learning about the yamas. And so, Ahimsa, nonviolence.
So if you look at yoga with these 8 limbs, like a big tree, right? And you've got 8 branches on this big tree. The yamas and the niyamas are a branch on that tree. And the ahimsa is a yama. There's also niyamas. So a yama is kind of like moral codes, right? It's the guide for how you can best show up, not just for yourself, but for the world around you. And yamas are not things that you do, right? They're not something that you practice. It's more about a mindset, and it's also about restraint, right? So yamas are seen as restraints, whereas niyamas are things to do, right? And they're more of like the observations and being observant of things that are happening around you.
Yeah, I've also heard them be described as like how we think about interacting with ourselves versus how we interact with the community.
Yes. So technically, like, the yamas are our moral code, right? Because it's moral is for us. Ethics is for how we show up. So the niyamas would be more about how we show up, right? Or how we lead our lives.
Yeah.
It was just really cool to like listen to Magenta, because I probed a little bit into some questions about, how she set up boundaries in her life. And she's been through, as you guys listen to, a lot of really physical, emotional, verbal, abusive relationships in her life. And as she said in her interview, she loves deep and fast. And so she never had those boundaries before, right? She was pretty much very open. And it wasn't until she hit a certain point in her life where she put up the boundaries and she started to look at herself in a different light. And it really was hard for me to hear, but, knowing that for the most part of her life, she wanted to kill herself and tried, did not think about living past a certain point. And I look at her and I think about, what if one of those times that had worked? I wouldn't have that person in my life right now. I wouldn't have that soul that is out there in this world giving out amazing energy to her students and her friends. And like, that was just really beautiful the way that she described it, because she said, like, my whole life I thought I was going to be dead by this time. And, I was excited about it. I didn't want to live. She tried her best to leave this earth many, many times. And then for her to end up that week before that time, and she said, you know, I started getting closer and going, well, I don't want to die. I want to be here. I want this. You know, I see the value. And our lives are nutty. I mean, all of us go through so much, and our traumas are different than other people's traumas, but we all experience the same reactions, the same emotions, just different levels. And like, it's proven that the way we think and feel is connected even to our immunity system, our brain and our cells and our genes, the way that we look at ourselves, the way we speak to ourselves. 95% of our emotions are determined by how we talk to ourselves.
And I think that's why those boundaries were so important, right? When I think about, and I think sometimes, I don't know, it's 50-50. Sometimes it's easier to set boundaries with other people, and sometimes it's harder to set them with other people versus setting them with yourselves, right?
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
You know, I
like
think
that.
it can really depend on, I guess, the boundary and the relationship and what it may be. But it seems like, at least from how the story was told and how I heard it, it started with setting those boundaries with other people. And sometimes that's easier, right? Like, no. Like,
You can't come in my house.
yeah, you can't come in my house. This is my boundary. And I think that was really important, just because, like she said, fast and quick and deep, you know?
Exactly.
And so setting those boundaries with other people, then you get to witness what respect for those boundaries looks like, and then manifests or turns into or transforms into in your life, right?
Yeah.
Oh, now I have these boundaries and these relationships are healthier. Or now I have these boundaries and I'm not experiencing, relationships too quickly, and then potentially with abuse, right? Whatever it may be. And then it transforms into these boundaries with self, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, if I was able to set up these expectations and boundaries with other people, now what does it look like when I have these expectations and boundaries with myself, right? So I shift perhaps how I think about my life.
Yeah.
And I think it depends on the person, but for me, it's easier to set it up with other people, right? It is much easier for me to have an expectation for someone else and maybe even help them and hold them to that expectation than maybe expectations of myself, right? Like, think about these goals that we set for ourselves. A lot of times I'm thinking about positive things, right? But like, I am going to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
It is so much harder for me to see myself to that goal or expectation than other people. I think it's a partnership thing. Like I mentioned it before, this podcast has held me accountable. And I'm like, okay, if I can be accountable to this podcast and to Adrienne and to this schedule, why can't I do that for my other goals and my other ambitions, right? And I think it's just something about we stand in our own way.
Oh, for sure we do. We always do. And I think too, like when we start to feel that discomfort of this doesn't feel right? This relationship doesn't feel right. Instead of pausing and taking a moment and reflecting, we just kind of internalize the negativity. It must be me, right?
Yeah.
I struggle with boundaries, and I have my whole life. I'm always been a very open person. You know, I will talk to anyone and I will stay with them throughout any conversations. I mean, I don't know if it's just the energy I put out, but people share their deepest, darkest secrets with me. And maybe that's because they feel safe in the studio or, out in the, world of being a mom. I don't know what it is, but I get a lot of heavy and a lot of deep information from people. And I hold on to those things. And I feel like I don't have the boundaries around myself to say that's not for you to hold on to, right? Like you can be okay with just being there for them, but not giving or internalizing, either way, their energies, right? And so I guess I do struggle too with self boundaries. I'm a ADHD freak, so I have to have a schedule. I have to have a calendar. I have to have alarms for everything. I'm terrified coming this fall because Mallory's doing Pep Squad and Campbell's got theater, and it's a shit ton of dates. And don't forget to volunteer and donate and sign up and pay this fee and come get this outfit. I'm like, fuck, I'm going to forget all of it, you know? So I do my best to try to hold myself to a standard of you're not perfect. You know, your kids didn't come with manuals, neither did you. So you have to do your best with what you have and be positive about it, right? Not beat yourself up if you miss a deadline or you miss something. And Magenta's boundaries, I think, really resonated with me. I've been hurt specifically by women friends over the past few years that have broken me in ways. And I say they broke me because pieces of me feel empty without those people in my life. But the harm that was done in the process and the harm that I let kind of come into my space and
Even
hold on to
through the friendship.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. It's like I held on and I held on and I held on trying to make everything work, you know, and trying to leave things better than the way I found them. And I got my heart broken by women friends over the past. And now I'm super gun shy. Like I don't want to get deep with people anymore. I want to stay away. But this podcast has reminded me that being vulnerable and being open is wonderful because that's where you can connect with other people, is in that vulnerable space. Where I need to leave it is there. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I just got chills. I got the won't chills. What I found interesting is that when you learn about the yamas and the niyamas, especially ahimsa, people think about like, okay, what is it? Ahimsa means no harm, basically.
Yeah,
right?
nonviolence.
Nonviolence. And it's not about love. Okay? So there's a difference because you're not replacing violence with love. You're learning how to refrain or restrain yourself, observe your thoughts, and change your behavior of how you think and how you show up. And that does to do with restraints like boundaries, you know, putting up things that won't hurt you. That idea for me that came out of this was, how do I set boundaries? How the fuck do you do this? Because you don't realize the patterns of behavior you have. You know, I meet a woman that I like at work or at a mom's group, and I'm like, oh, I like this person. I want to bring them with me, like be my friend. It's like, okay, relax. Pause. The power of a pause.
Yeah. I think sometimes also, although it's easier to start with other people, what are my boundaries? Like, okay, I'm going to get coffee with you 3 times as a friend before I invite you into my house, or, you know, whatever it may be.
Right.
I'm joking with
You're
the
right.
friends, you know, but, and something else that's really standing out to me is, although sometimes it's easier to start with those boundaries with others, right? It's really easy to say, hey, quit causing me harm, quit, you know, asserting violence towards me, whatever it may be.
If it's obvious.
Right. Well, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
By no means is it easy, but sometimes I think it's easier to notice when someone else is treating you badly versus when you treat yourself badly.
Yes, totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And so it's easier sometimes to start with those external boundaries, but I think it's really important to start with those internal boundaries, right? And it doesn't matter however it happens, but if you can sit down and navigate with yourself, how am I perpetrating violence towards myself? How am I navigating my relationship with myself? And then how is it one that can be without violence, right? And so, because if you're not perpetrating violence towards yourself, you're definitely not going to accept it from other people. Right. I don't even treat myself that way. I don't even talk to myself that way. Why would I let you talk to me that way?
What an interesting way of looking at it, because we always look at it from the negative, right? Our brain is naturally pre-wired for a worst case scenario. So our brain automatically goes to negative because the brain thinks I'm in survival mode, right? When our stress levels get high, when our anxieties get up there, when our emotions creep in, all of those things have a way in the brain of coming out negative. So it's a pattern behavior that we have to unlock.
Yeah, and it's tough. But I think Magenta's done it beautifully, right? And I'm sure it's a work in progress, and I'm sure it's continual as it is for all of us. But Ahimsa really is this practice of nonviolence. And I think her story exemplified that beautifully, right? In relationships with others, with the boundaries she had to set in these relationships with herself, right? And how she thought about her own life and how she wants to show up, right?
Yeah. I thought it was interesting too that she said for what she wanted people to learn about her was foundation before flight.
Yeah.
And that totally makes sense. Like her grounding herself in her home and her kind of putting up healthy restraints, you know? And one of the things that Ahimsa, it's not just the physical violence, but it's also the violence of words or your thoughts, what we think about ourselves, what we think about others. And that can all be just as painful as physical violence, as most of us have experienced in our lives, some way, shape, or form.
Right. I also think, even though it seemed like an external boundary of you cannot enter my home, that was Magenta working on her relationship with herself.
Absolutely.
Right? Like I think about it a lot of when they talk about like, oh, you need to be happy with yourself before entering a relationship because if you're expecting them to make you happy, right? Whatever it may
it's never
be.
going to happen.
And so if you can create your home and make it this like oasis, like this is my safe space, this is where everything is a reflection of me, I'm happy here, this is where I can thrive,
Yep.
then allow someone to come in, right? And then it's like, okay, and don't break up my ecosystem. It's working really great for me.
Exactly. Don't bring your negative fucking energy into my home, into my oasis.
Versus not having that foundation, right? And then saying, hey, can you come fix my ecosystem? Right? Can you come fix my foundation?
Yeah.
And so I think it all makes sense. And I hope when we're saying it to everyone right now on the podcast, it makes sense because I know I'm kind of like jumping all over. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things that sometimes takes time. It takes years. It takes practice. Ahimsa, nonviolence is tough. It sounds simple, but I know that in practice it's much harder than it sounds.
Oh my God, it's so hard. And I've learned a lot from Magenta, working with her and getting close with her over the past 3.5 years. And I've learned so much about healthy boundaries with her. Practicing Ahimsa, it means that we are taking responsibility for our own harmful behavior, and then we're attempting to stop the harm caused by others, right? And we can't control what others do, period, end of story. So stop saying, why do they have to be that way? They are that way. So either accept them or move on.
Yeah.
And that the power of the pause for me really made the difference. Stop and think for a second. Is this harming me? Is it harming my family? Is it harming my community? My planet? Like, look at what you're thinking about becomes about. And we as individuals have, and society-wise, have always dampened our lights instead of kind of energized them and brought them out in other people. I get a lot of times at the yoga studios, people cry in my class. And I've talked to other teachers about it. You and I have spoken about it. And it's crazy when that happens because other people kind of look around. They're like, why is that person crying in a yoga class? Well, yoga poses have intentions in them. And sometimes there's parts of your body that hold on to certain emotions or feelings or memories. And when those are released in a place where you feel safe, you can release those through tears. And I remember talking to one teacher and she's like, I don't have that many people cry in my class. You said you've had it happen to you. I mean, I pretty much have it on a regular basis, which is weird to me because I'm like, am I holding the space right for them? Am I protecting their energy? And then I'm like, it's not my fucking responsibility. They have to do it. It's coming out of them, but that doesn't mean it has to land on me. Right? It's like, and people tell me things. Shit, the DoorDash guy just came, right? He walks up to me. I'm sitting outside, and he goes, I go, how's your day going? He's like, it's great. I'm about to have a job interview. And I go, that's amazing. I go, well, you go in with the attitude that you're the best person for this job and they're dumb if they don't hire you. He's like, I'm going to put my best foot forward. So I basically sat outside for 5 minutes and gave this guy a pep talk.
Aww.
And it was so nice. But that's me. And I have to protect myself because that's the one thing that I'm not good at. I'm the one that sets the high expectations. And then when I don't meet those expectations in my mind, I beat myself up. And I've learned over, God, it hasn't even been that long, to be honest. I'm 48 years old. It's probably been within the past 5 or 6 years that I've really kind of come to terms with no one else can make you feel a certain kind of way. Next week, we'll have a follow-up episode about Ahimsa. So when we talked about Ahimsa before, we talked about it with Shay, and we talked about it from the fact of like she hated herself, right? And she had to find the self-love. She didn't replace the hate with love. Remember that, right? She figured out that she wasn't what she thought she was. She wasn't this negative, awful person. And I think that that's the homework what we need to do is what is really amazing about you, because all of us have that. All of us have one thing, right? And it doesn't sometimes come out in like, you know, an actor or an NFL player, right? It's like this natural talent that they can sing or dance or do whatever the fuck they do. Some of us, it's harder to find.
Yeah.
Or it's harder to illuminate. So cool. That was fun. I really enjoyed it. So check us out on Insta and the TikTok at Yoga Changed. Don't forget to follow Mia and I. I'm at Family Flow Yoga, and Mia is at Mia Rose Yoga. And her Amazon wish list for her new classroom is up there. And it would be really cool if our listeners wanted to donate some stuff to a wonderful new school for Mia. Thanks, y'all. If you want to share your stories, it's super important. We want to hear from you. So send us a voice memo. You can send us an email at yogachanged@gmail.com. And we are really excited to hear from you and keep working on this podcast together.
Bye, y'all.